Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and it's time for some more Bloodsword. Now, I imagine after the last episode some of you might have expected this to be a best of three against the demons. Azidahaka, Nasu and the Yazir. Fat chance. I'm not doing that again. I pretty much got the best result I could out of it. And it's just nasty. Okay, it's a nasty encounter and an unavoidable one. You can run away. You can run away pretty quickly, but you could still die before you get to flee the field. Instead, we're going to continue exactly where we left off, and the demons will not be faced again in this episode, but I'm keeping them here in case I do change my mind and decide to do a best of three against them later on. The other reason I'm keeping them here is I might do a party of 3, a party of 2 and a party of 1, so that would be what, rank 16 character, 2 rank 8s or 3 rank 5s, I think. I think that's right. So after escaping the demons, we got into Fatima's garden. We met with a stranger called Hassan, who said that he intends to kill Prince Sosorian before the dawn. And, with the aid of Prince Sosorian's Hatuli, we found a well, at the bottom of which was some kind of underground complex, which we will be entering now. The Hatuli has been instructed to take us to the Bloodsword, and it's scampering along. Take the left-hand path, the left-hand arch, turn right at the first junction, turn left at the second junction. These are the directions the Hatuli will take. We're not going to be instructed at the time when we come to sections. If you have the Hatuli, this will do this, and that, because that's just a lot of extra writing and a lot of duplication. And instead, we've just been told at the beginning, this is the way the Hatuli leads you. I did not heal at this section, and as it's a non-combat section, I'm going to do that now. I'm going to make a 2-point healing attempt to start the session. I spend 2 points, I get 8 points back. That's brilliant. I'll give the 2 points back to Brother Kern, and then 3 each to Brother Kern and Remy, taking them up to 15 endurance apiece. Because whatever woes and hardships may lie in wait for us down here, the more endurance points we can restore, the better we will be capable of dealing with them when the time comes. At the bottom of the well there is still the foul chill of night time, although sunrise is now only a few minutes away. The chamber is dank, but there is no water in this well apart from a slimy puddle of muck in the centre of the floor. 3 tunnels lead out of the south wall. From the right-hand one you hear a steady dripping. The other 2 tunnels are silent. You make a torch from some sticks of dry wood lying on the broken flagstones. It gives a sputtering, uneven light, but it will do. The sudden heat of the torch alarms a serpent, which you notice slithering away into the left-hand tunnel. You take a last look up at the sky, now turning a limpid azure. Then you lift the torch and head off southwards. We could take the right-hand tunnel, the central one, or the left-hand one. Well, the Hatuli is going off down the left-hand tunnel. If we don't follow it, we might lose track of it. And I suppose we could pick it up and take it with us and then put it back down on the floor again when we get to this room, with its little arms and legs trying to move the whole time, like some kind of bizarre remote control battery-operated toy. That doesn't feel very right. Additionally, the serpent took the same tunnel, which means that's probably the safest of the 3 tunnels. So let us follow the little Hatuli, the wooden idol with green gemstones for eyes. Beautiful emeralds. And beautiful they are. You make your way cautiously along the tunnel. The growing daylight filtering down the wells slips away into gloom behind you. Soon you reach a circular brick-lined chamber. An elaborate frieze set into a band of stone runs around the wall. The sequence of paintings on the frieze depicts a tall metallic figure wearing a three-pointed helmet. In one of the paintings, it is shown attacking diminutive human figures who surround it, its mace scattering them like chaff. Another of the paintings features the metal warrior smashing the temples of the land to rubble. You notice only one painting in which it bows down to mortal men. The scene shows a group of priests commanding it by holding up their arms with the backs of their hands pressed together. Obviously some arcane magical gesture. You shrug, turning from the frieze to scan the room. There is only one exit. Before we pass through it, we'll make another 2-point healing roll and lose those 2 points. It worked out so well last time. You pass through it and along a straight tunnel until you see a glimmer of light ahead. All the way down to a very low number. 65. Oh, a picture. We'll get to the picture in a moment. You enter a vast barrel-vaulted chamber which runs east to west. There are 2 other entrances besides the one you have come through in the north wall, and 2 archways ahead of you in the south wall. The walls are decorated with hundreds of metal leaves, artfully made lifelike by the use of verdigris and gold to obtain the right colours. The leaves are intended to be those of the ash tree, as far as you can tell, an odd representation to find so far south. But Yggdrasil, the world ash, it's tying in together. Your attention is distracted by a metallic figure that is lumbering along the hall towards you. It is twice the size of the tallest warrior that you have ever seen, and 3 spikes protrude evilly from its otherwise featureless head. From the way it is swinging its giant mace, it must have been set here to prevent anyone passing further into the underworld. We did pass through the room with the frieze, but let's look at this horrific monstrosity. I mean, these limbs look almost human. The arms could look a bit metallic, the legs very much like corded muscle. This head is not a helmet, it's the thing's actual metal head. And we're going to try a 1-point heal just in case we get into a fight. And it's gone. Oh, game, why are you so cruel to me? Okay. We did indeed pass through the room with the freeze just recently. Fortunately, the Hatuli chose to take us by that route. We could choose to fight the metal monster, or we could try and duplicate the command gesture we saw depicted on the frieze. Let's make a 1-point healing roll while we're making this decision, and get 4 points back. Those 3 points will take him back up to 15, so where we were a couple of sections ago. Yeah, let's try and copy the command gesture. I mean, it's literally just down here. Was it arms raised with the backs of the hands turned in together, or palms of hands pressed together with fingers splayed out, or fingers interwoven with thumbs projecting upwards? It was blatantly the first one, but since we got another choice, let's make a 2-point healing roll and get 6 points back. Those 4 points we'll give 3 to Brother Kern, and the last one to Remy. So yes, the reason I'm calling the 6 points 4 points is that I'm automatically giving Remy back Brother Kern back the ones he spends, because the higher we can get his health, the more he can heal other people. So we need 8, 10 points of healing. Let's try and pace ourselves. So it was absolutely the arms raised with the backs of the hands turned in, pressed together. A very sort of Indian-looking gesture. So let's do that. The automaton seems to flinch back as you make the ancient gesture of command. Swaying, it drops its mace and puts its hands to its chest. You think for a moment that it is about to topple, and you move well back in case it does, but instead it opens a flap in its chest and takes out a crystal tuning fork. This it hands to you. One of the players must record it on their character sheet. Yeah, sure. And you feel a slight hum as you pass your fingers over its prongs. Apparently satisfied, the automaton gives a stiff bow and retreats to the far end of the hall. Who shall carry this? I kind of want to go with Remy, but he's... Now, the Hatuli is walking around along on the floor. But I'm not going to remove it from our possessions just yet. We have a lot of food. Let's chuck some food. And Sir Alwyn can carry it. Is it described as a crystal tuning fork? There we go. That is bound to come in useful. And this is a section where we're going to make a 2-point healing roll. And we'll get 2 points back. We'll give one of them to Brother Kern and one to Remy. So, the automaton has returned to the far end of the hall. There is nothing else of interest here. As you watch, the supernatural illumination that fills the hall begins to fade and you are plunged into torchlit gloom once more. You now have the choice of taking the left-hand archway or the right-hand one. Well, as we know, the Hatuli is already trying to scamper through the left-hand arch, so we should obviously follow. Now, it is entirely possible to perform this part of the adventure without the Hatuli, especially if you've done it before, and that would allow you to use the wooden flying horse to fly to the ship to get the emeralds, and it would play essentially the same, except you'd be blundering around in the dark a bit and possibly encounter a few death traps along the way. You advance along a granite-lined passageway. Soon you come to a junction, and Brother Kern attempts another 2-point healing roll. He spends 2 points, regains 4, so he'll give those 2 back to himself. I'll give the other 2 both to Remy, actually, to put him on 19, as Remy has a little further to go to reach full health. We have avoided one fight with the automaton. I might do a video after, in the last thoughts video at the end of the book, I might do all of the fights that I avoided in the dungeon. Not necessarily ones I didn't encounter, but the ones I might do a fight against the automaton just to show what it's like. We could head straight on, but we could also take a turning to the right, and the Hatuli is turning right at this junction. So we shall follow it. All the way down to an even lower numbered section. 8 is much lower than 65. And because it's a new section that doesn't appear to have a fight in it, we're going to make another 2-point healing roll. Because why not? Spend 2, lost 2. That's why not. I mean, on average, we'll get a slow, steady gain over time, but it won't be entirely reliable. Just wait till book 5 when the healing is d6 minus 1 instead of d6 minus 2, and suddenly the sage is just a god among men. You come to another fork in the passageway. Realizing that the branch to the left will lead you back northwards, you go straight on. So this is our first of junctions, and at the second junction the Hatuli will turn left. So So far, so good. You reach a chamber. There is another passage entering this room from the north, presumably the one you would have entered by had you gone the other way. Opposite you, there is a large door of stout ashwood, held shut by a large padlock and several rusted iron bolts. Again, ash. We've had the ash leaves earlier, now the ash wood. This is again tying into a theme, and I think I know what it might be, actually. Something I'm not so sure I picked up on when I was younger, when I played this many years ago. A shape seems to detach itself from the shadows. You swing around, thrusting the torch forwards, but there is nothing there. As you turn around again, you come face to face with a monstrous guardian which is now standing in front of the door. It has the slavering features of a dog or a jackal, but the muscular body of a human warrior. In its hands it holds a glittering spear which it lowers to point at you. As its yellow eyes glance at you, it lets out a growl of menace. Since we've entered a new chamber, I'll try another 2-point healing roll. And I will regain 6 points. So I'll give those 2 back to Brother Kern. Then I'll give him 3 more up to 18. And I'll give 1 more to Remy, taking him up to 20. There we go. We could fight the creature or use an item. I think I'll use an item. And the only reason I'm using an item is that I'm aware the spear might do something really nasty. It might not just be a spear. It might fire a lightning bolt at us or something. Which item do you wish to use? I wish to use a 2-point healing roll because it's another non-combat section. And those 2 points are gone. Ah, the up and down life of the sage's endurance points. So, we could use a tuning fork, a copper bottle, or a golden mirror. We have a tuning fork and a copper bottle. Let's use the tuning fork. The copper bottle, if the thing does fire a lightning bolt at us, copper is conductive, so you could argue we could try and catch the lightning bolt in the bottle, but it might just attract the lightning to us. A tuning fork will make a musical sound, subtle, and dogs do have sensitive hearing. This jackal-headed warrior may react in some way. As soon as you flick the tuning fork to make it ring, the creature pricks up its ears and regards you solemnly. It steps over to the door, lifting its spear. It seems to have an almost majestic bearing now, and you sense a glimmer of proud wisdom behind its eyes. As the spear touches the door, there is a blinding flash of light and the locks and bolts fall away. The door swings open with an imperious... The door swings open and, with an imperious wave of its spear, the dog creature ushers you through. And as we are ushered through, we'll make another 2-point healing roll. And we'll get 4 points back, taking Brother Kern back up to 18 endurance points. I should probably start making some 3-point healing rolls again, but I'm not going to. Instead, I will just happily continue to stick it with 2-pointers, because I don't need that many points right now. I mean, currently I need 6, right? So I can just keep working at it. What could possibly be beyond this doorway? We haven't had to turn left yet. Do you have the Hatuli? Yes or no? Yes, we do. And we'll make a 2-point healing roll as we are asked. And we will recover 6 points. So, 2. I'll give the 3 to Remy. and the one to Brother Kern, so they are now each 1 point below maximum endurance. At the point where we can relatively comfortably face numerous threats. We do have the Hatuli, so that means something's happening. It is a condition that has been met. As you enter the bowl... Sorry, there's no as there at all, is there? You enter a bowl-shaped cave. The walls rise steeply on all sides, glittering where your torchlight shines on veins of crystal. Stalactites hang like tears from the immense vault of the roof. The Hatuli stops and lifts its arm to indicate a jewelled trapdoor set into the far side of the cave. You smile and pick the little mannequin up. Yes, the Hatuli has done its work, mutters a voice behind you. You turn. Sorcerer, you maggot! He winces. Please. Even allowing for your restricted mentality, there is surely no cause for insult. No, not really. There is the hiss of a sword leaving a scabbard. Remember the butcher's shop in Crescentium, O Prince of Perfidy? Those bloody carcasses? In just a few moments. Threats too, he says, not unduly worried. Haven't you realized yet that you are no match for my magic? In the event, however, dealing with me is not the most immediate of your problems. Why not take a look behind you? You snort contemptuously. You don't expect... A heavy tread echoes off the cave walls. You turn slowly. A large monster stands there, a squat, heavy-limbed thing apparently carved from wood. As it inclines its face of totemic scars towards you, you hear Susurian say, It is the 7 in 1. A whimsical folk name for a primitive god of great ferocity. Much nastier than my umbracules. This is the real thing. And with that revelation, we're going to attempt another 2-point healing roll. We can spend 2 points, get 2 points back. We'll leave them where they are. And this would be the 7 in 1 that we read of on that scroll. The 7 in 1 glares at you with eyes that are shards of seashell. Then it lifts its wooden fists and plods forward. The 7 in 1 has no mind in the proper sense, and thus cannot be controlled by servile enfrollment. You cannot retreat now. You sense you are within a stone's throw of your goal, if only you can overcome this final threat. We could use an item, or we could fight and try to win. This vast wooden golem is coming upon us. Let's do something rather blatant. We are at section 204. We have a scroll. $518. Let's go read that again. We do have a sage, 141. So yeah, I should just change the scroll to 141 really, shouldn't I? Oh, but if he was dead, we wouldn't be able to ask him to translate it for again. We'd have to do it from memory. It is one page from a longer story. But a long life had been written for me. Faced with the moving idol, however, my wits took flight, and my bowels shook like a jellyfish. I fell to my knees and called upon God to deliver me, but the idol picked me up and carried me to a bamboo cage in the centre of the island. In its arms I had no more weight than a bag of dates. There were 3 other unfortunates in the cage, and when the creature had gone, I asked them how they had come to be captured. In the same manner as yourself, said the first. Do you not know that this is the island of the 7 in 1? This is the name given to the malignant idol that seized you, and it has this name because it is actually 7 idols, one inside the next. You may wonder how such a thing could be, and in fact, we 3, who by happy chance are the wisest sages of all Kitai, have spent our time in this cage pondering just this question. My own view is that it is like the tale of the 3 Ifrits who tried to enter paradise. What tale is that? I asked. That is where the scroll ends. Return to the entry you were at before, which is 204. And I'd like to point out here that the section we can go to use an item is section 402, which makes 204 easy to remember because it's the same number in reverse. Now, the 7-in-1 only has a fighting prowess of 6, but it does 5 dice of damage. It's got an awareness of 5, so it's big, it's slow, it's lumbering, 45 endurance, 9 psychic ability. We can fight this, but this isn't one fight. This is 7-in-1. It's literally 7 fights. There's 6 more wooden golems inside there, like a Russian doll. They each have their own stat block, and when we defeat one, it breaks open, and we fight the next one. I think I should absolutely do a 7-in-1 video after the adventure. But for now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to use an item. $402. You should have recorded the number of the previous entry before turning here. Check that you have done this. We could use the Orb of Fire from Book 2 if we had it. We don't, because we used it in Book 2, and it's at the bottom of a great lake with ice along the top. It's still probably bubbling and fizzing down there, actually. Maybe it's eventually frozen over and stopped. We could use the Magian's Wand, and if we have neither of those, we'd have to go do the fight. This looks like the Magian's Wand, doesn't it? And we saw the Magian using it to hurl lightning bolts and fire and stuff. Let's use that, as we have borne it all the way for the last couple of episodes. Ariadne has it. And, before we do, 461. If we use the Magian's Wand, we are instructed to turn to 166. And I want to point out, rather conveniently, section 166 begins with, make sure you have a note of the last entry you were reading. If you are using the Magian, you are using the Magian's Wand. If you are fighting the 7-in-1, now turn to 461 now, and ignore the rest of this. It's the exact same number. It's, hey, you could do it 2 different ways, right? We've got a magic wand. We're going to use it. A tendril of fire leaps from the wand and curls around the wooden monster. It emits a shriek of unhuman panic as it flails about within the flames, quickly becoming transformed into a living bonfire. You step back aghast, revolted by the eerie screaming. Finally it topples and you watch as it burns down to a pile of smouldering ash. Cross off the wand. You have now expended the last of its power. The wand has been used and it has saved us a potential large amount of damage. That would have undone a lot of Brother Kern's healing and softened us up for an encounter yet to come. Now, it does feel like I cheesed it a bit there, but again, we don't get experience points for completing fights and defeating opponents. We get experience points for completing the adventure, for our objective, our goal. Also, this is a non-combat section, so we're going to try a little 2-point healing roll. And they're lost. I probably shouldn't have done that. Oh well. If you have, do you have the code word improbity on your character sheets? No, we do not. In which case, I'll probably talk about the code word improbity later on after this, because we've had Mythico, Nexus, Speculum, and Improbity. We've had a few code words in this book. 436, was it? Yes. Now to deal with Sorcery. You turn with a feral glint in your eyes. He is standing with arms raised as if about to cast a spell, but the expression on his face is one of puzzlement. A trickle of blood runs from his mouth and splashes onto the green border of his robes. His eyes roll up and he sways and falls lifeless to the floor of the cave. Hassan is standing behind him. He wipes his dagger on a square of black silk and sheathes it with a soft click. In that moment you know who he is. Hassan Isabah, the old man of the mountains, the Grand Master of the Marija assassins. Sorcery's past has caught up with him finally, he says. It is dawn. I'm going to try a little 2-point healing roll. Hassan is now with us. Prince Sorcery has been defeated. The vile, I'd almost say necromancer, but no, he's more of a conjurer or summoner or illusionist, or all three. So we spend 2 points, get back 6. That'll take us to 17. Give 1 to Remy. And then we can give 3 more to Brother Kern. Oh, everyone's on full. Excellent. That's just what we needed. We don't need to risk any more healing rolls for a while now. And what a perfect time to be on full health too. And here we come to this illustration that we've seen once before. Hassan steps over to the trapdoor and swings it open with a single fluid sweep of his arm. You test the weight of the trapdoor as you pass through and realize that his wiry frame must conceal the strength of 3 normal men. Fortunate indeed that you and he are not enemies. You follow him into a long hall of white marble. Unadorned pillars of polished black granite form an avenue towards the far end. There you see 2 circular shafts that lead up into the ceiling and down into the floor. The shaft in the ceiling burns with a thick red light. The one in the floor emanates a cold green glow. These are the eternal foci, says Hassan, the poles of life and death. We have arrived at them by way of the underworld beneath Hakbad, but in fact there are many routes and many truths. Advancing along the hall with him, you come to a grey stone block beside the 2 foci. Hassan reaches out and lifts a sparkling scimitar from the block. You watch him test the edge of its blade against the hairs on his arm. He lets out a sigh of sheer awe at its beauty, but to you there is something of far greater beauty here. Also lying on the stone block is the object for which you have searched and fought these many years, the blade of the blood sword. Hassan strings the sword of death across his back and turns to you. Sorcery could certainly have betrayed you. Oh, sorry, would. Sorcery would certainly have betrayed you, he says. He would have gained nothing. He wanted only the sword of death, but it was in his nature to do so. Remember that. The betrayal was in his nature. In his nature. The swords of life and death do not have to oppose one another. They are 2 halves of a whole. When we meet again, therefore, I am hopeful it will be as allies. You bow courteously, expressing the same wish. When you look up, he is gone. You blink, dazed at his extraordinary stealth, and repeat the wish, even more fervently. Then you take up the blood sword blade. Opening the hilt, you fix it reverently within. You have kept your vow to the old minstrel who charged you with your quest. The objective you have strived for since that fateful night in the forest clearing is now achieved. The sword of life is restored. All surviving players get 1,000 experience points to be distributed equally among them. These experience points will take effect at the end of this adventure. That's 250 each. I'm doing that now because we obviously won't be instructed to later on. 1,050. Everyone will be 5th rank at the end of the adventure, provided they survive. And why shouldn't they? I mean, mission complete, right? Whoever was carrying the hilt and scabbard should delete these items. The blood sword is now one single item. Also, by completing your quest, you have become mighty enough to oppose the power of the true magi, even without the aid of the sword. If you lose it, you do not have to turn to section 475. But of course you have no intention of losing it. What I will do, however, we can remove the scabbard of the blood sword and the hilt of the blood sword, and we just have the blood sword itself. You begin to walk back out of the hall. A tall, slender figure clad in exotically fashioned armour stands waiting for you on the steps by the door. You recognize him at once. An enemy you made even before your quest of a bloodsword began, when he was your rival in the Krathian battle pits. Icon. Now, before continuing any further, I'd like to point out, when I first played this book as a youngster many years ago, and it was the only book of the series that I had no idea who Icon was. And it was strange that his name was a word. That being said, I had encountered Psyche the sorceress and learned that she was his sister and he was an arch nemesis of ours. So to have a character suddenly introduced and say, here is your arch nemesis, at least I knew that he existed, but there was still this kind of feeling of, who is this man? And while we haven't necessarily had very much development from him, that may be about to change. His lips curl in a sneer. You foreign devils always get my name wrong. It is Icon, a spirit name taken from my ancestors, not some painted symbol of your own benighted faith. You shake your head. Get out of the way, Icon, whatever you call yourself. We have no reason to quarrel. It has been a long night with more than its fair share of bloodshed. You don't want to add your own name, however you pronounce it, to the list of casualties. You look him in the eyes. By my honour, that is a call to battle, he snarls. Do you mean to suggest that I am unable to destroy you? Like the merest ant, I'll crush you. Like a thing without bones, you'll squirm and die under the heel of my boot. For 5 years I have pursued you, since the days of your callow youth, when by stark chance you managed to get the better of me in craft. When I arrived in Crescentium at the house of my sister Psyche, I discovered you were also in Outremer. Since then I have remained on your spoor, prepared to hunt you for hate's sake to the very boundaries of the earth, if need be. This petty concern of yours for that magic blade is as nothing. My feud with you is like thunder. My wrath is the spitting of lightning. He suddenly becomes calm. Turning a wry glance at you, he draws a pouch of silvery dust from his jerkin and scatters it to the left and right. A barrier of scarlet flame forms behind him, blocking your route out of the hall. Reaching with his left gauntlet into the flames, he pulls out a swathe of them and wraps these around his body. You have seen him use a trick like that before, the spell of retributive fire. He seems to have made it a little more powerful over the years. All right, Icon, you say with a sigh. If you want to fight, you've got one. You suddenly give a roar of anger and rush towards him, but he's got awareness 9, so he's probably going to go first. Icon, the Ungodly, returns to threaten us once again. He is immune to the spell of servile enthrallment, because of the spell of retributive fire, Anyone who strikes him in melee is burned for 1 endurance point, armor notwithstanding. I think that's what the spell of Retributive Fire used to be as well. I'd better go make a map, and I think I'll reutilize this Great Hall and just rescale the grid. So, see you guys in a bit. Here is our map. I've created a hallway, our big dark block, and our obvious wall of fire, using 2 copies of the fire pit from the Berserker's Drinking Hall from Book 2. Here we have Icon the Ungodly, prepared to mess us up. All our heroes are arranged. I think, given that it is extremely obvious this is a combat section, I will have Ariadne prepare a spell. However, she already has a spell prepared. That would be the spell of immediate deliverance, which we cannot use in this fight as there is no option to flee beyond the wall of fire. If we had been given an option to use the spell of immediate deliverance and then leg it, and have him howling in frustration behind his own wall of flames, that would be spectacular. But there may very well be a reason why we have not been given that option. A narrative reason, not a cunning and intelligence reason. So, having an additional spell prepared will lower our psychic ability by 1 and essentially essentially increase all our casting times by 1. I am tempted to take a huge gamble here and try for the Nemesis Bolt spell, which is a complexity level of 5. This would easily take me 4, 5 or 6 rounds to cast. Sword Thrust would probably take 2 or 3. So let's say a Nemesis Bolt is 2 Sword Thrusts, right? It's 3 turns longer than, complexity level 5. Let's presume I get the same dice rolls. 3 turns longer is 1 turn preparing the spell, and 2 attempting to cast a second Sword Thrust. So a Sword Thrust would be cast on a 5, then a 6. By which point, that would be down to very low complexity level. We'd be looking at like 6s and 7s for that. Nemesis Bolt does a little bit more than 2 Sword Thrusts, and the armor would only be reduced once instead of twice. It would be very nice to cast the Eye of the Tiger spell. It's probably not worth going for Night Howl, because his psychic ability is 9, so he will resist a lot. The Eye of the Tiger would be great, but his damage is so high at 5d6 that he can drop any hero with 2 hits. Potentially 1 with an extremely high damage roll. And he'll be going first, so he will get a good chance to cripple somebody. And that somebody will probably be Sir Alwyn. Most unfortunate. So Eye of the Tiger is a psychic spell that helps us. Anything else is high damage. Yes, so we will go for the the Nemesis Bolt, because we're going to need to do a lot of defending. So he'll come in and attack, probably hit Sir Alwyn with a fighting prowess of 9. Sir Alwyn will then need to defend, and we can't afford to have him attacking the same badly wounded character every turn. So we'll need Remy to get in there, and possibly Brother Kern as well. With the spell of Retributive Fire, it would be very nice to hang back and just shoot arrows at him. But we can't have him hacking up one character without at least 1 distraction, possibly 2. Which means a lot of our damage is going to come from Ariadne again. So, I saw the 2 crystalline blue eyes and thought it was the emerald eyes that are in the Hatuli. Speaking of the Hatuli, we're not carrying that anymore. It has served its purpose. It brought us here. So yes, we go down another point of psychic ability and prepare Nemesis Bolt. This is going to be high risk, high reward. I don't expect the dice to love me. We shall see. So with a snarl, Icon preempts our attack and comes in with one of his own. That's an absolute hit. That's only 13 points of damage. That's great with an armor value of 3. So Alwyn is only taking 10. In theory, he could take another hit like that. In practice, he probably should not. Remy will come sidling in with the giant slaying sword. Icon is not a giant, but he still bleeds. And oh yeah, it goes without saying that this is a quick thinking encounter where Remy will use his special ability from book 1 if he needs to. And he's probably going to need to. Okay. He attacks and hits. Which means he'll take 1 point of damage due to the spell of Retributive Fire. Great ability, by the way. And he will himself deal a 1d6 plus 2, which is not amazing. But it's guaranteed to get through the armor. 6 will be 4 damage, taking Icon down to 51 endurance points. His fighting prowess and psychic ability are both 1 point higher than in book 1. His damage is like 3 dice higher. His awareness is higher and his endurance is higher. Armor is the same, mercifully. We've nicked him. A small trickle of blood will become visible, just like dripping from his armoured sleeve or something. So Alwyn will defend. I think we need to defend until Icon is below 20 endurance, or possibly even below 15, with Sir Alwyn for now. Brother Kern will... might as well fire an arrow, because I'll get them back at the end of the book anyway. That is a miss, unfortunately. And Ariadne will attempt to cast Nemesis Bolt. That's 2d6 plus 5. Attempting to get a 7, so a double 1. Not expecting miracles, and we certainly didn't get any. It's okay. Icon the Ungodly will randomize his target. He goes for Remy. Oh, I should have had Remy defend. Oh well, too late. That is a merciful miss, and I should have added 1 because Remy's a hard target, so that would have been an 11 instead of a 10. That is very good for us. Remy will attack again. You know what? Brother Kern has an awareness of 7, meaning he can move 3 squares, meaning he cannot engage Icon the Ungodly this turn. Remy, doesn't have... If he had higher awareness, he would slip around to make space for him, but he does not, so we'll just attack from here. That's a hit. That's another point of Retributive Fire. Hey, did I not... Huh. No, I must have done, surely. There we are. Let's see some damage. 7, so that will be 5 after armor. And we really want to be getting that warrior heavy 2d6 plus 1 damage in there. But at the moment, we just can't risk it. So Alwyn needs to defend. Brother Kern will move closer. And Ariadne will attempt her Nemesis Bolt spell, this time on 2d6 plus 4. Hoping for a 3. Look at that. Look at that. Double 1 plus 4 is 6. The Nemesis spell goes off. This is glorious. So her psychic ability will go back up to 9. We will lose the Nemesis Bolt as it is expended, but keep the spell of immediate deliverance, which is hampering us. I kept it in case the demons caught up with us and we had to flee again. It was a distinct possibility. But the Nemesis Bolt deals 7d6 plus 7 damage. Look, whatever I roll, it's a minimum of 14. 42! Oh, you know what's happening here, don't you? 42 minus his armor is 40, taking him down to a mere 6 endurance points. Which means I said Remy would use quick thinking for the extra turn this fight if he needed to. I think he's going to do it. Remy will... Look, if Remy fails to take down Icon, and Icon absolutely floors Remy with a single attack afterwards, it would be just like perfect poetic justice. But for now, let's live dangerously and make that attack roll. That is a hit. I don't even... I need to roll maximum damage for this. I shouldn't have done it. Oh well. 1d6 plus 2. So I should have defended. That is 6. 2 is 4. Takes Icon down to a mere 2 endurance points. And Remy is now taking another point of burning fire damage. And Icon will, howling in frustration, choose a target. He goes for the defending warrior. Okay. Who does not put up a good enough defense. Let us pray. 14 damage minus 3 armor is 11. Put Sir Alwyn on 3 endurance points. At this point, I think Remy's going to look to Sir Alwyn, defend, and be like, "You've earned this, man. Do it." And Sir Alwyn will attempt to cut him down where he stands. "Icon! You've crossed us for the last time!" Let's see that fearless attack. Oh, for fuck's sake! And misses. Misses! Oh! Brother Kern, can you come in and bop him on the head with a stick? Give him the holy blessing, the holy wood, the sacred log. Hit him hard. He hits him! He deals. And Sir Alwyn is so badly wounded we can't really risk using the golden snuff box of Shormiano after this. So, Brother Kern also deals 1d6 plus 2, which is 6. Takes him out. "Down you go, villain!" Crack his skull. We won. Icon coughs blood, but even though his face is ghastly pale, he does not fall. Before your eyes, he dissolves into a sparkling mist and begins to drift up into the air. "I used the spell of vaporization as a means of escape when we last did battle," says a disembodied voice. "Now it provides me with the means to restore my vitality." What can he mean? You glance at the barrier of flame. It seems to be dying down, but the heat from it is still intense. We could try to dive through it and flee, or use an item. Well, before we make that decision, let's make a 3-point healing roll. And those points are lost, regrettably. But with 17 more endurance, Brother Kern can definitely try to help Sir Alwyn. Let's use an item. He's turned into mist. We have the eternal foci of life and death in this chamber. Right. Let's use an item. And because it's a use an item question section, we can make another 3-point healing roll. Let us absolutely do that. Those 3 points are also lost to us. Ah, so be it. Which of the following items will you use? A bottle of yellow copper or the dog-headed man's spear? We don't have the dog-headed man's spear. We do have the bottle from the genie. There's no option to be forced to go back if we don't have one of these items, interestingly enough. So we didn't get to sell the bottle to an antique dealer after all. But if a genie could be trapped in a bottle for thousands of years, in a smoky form to emerge from it, and Icon the Ungodly has transformed himself into a smoky cloud, we can probably get him in the bottle. Let's do it. Let's absolutely do it. I was thinking maybe we could, if we couldn't sell the bottle, maybe we'd keep it and use it in book 5 to trap something, but this is even better. You pull the stopper from a bottle and hold it above the mist as it rises. You can see what Icon was planning to do. He was drifting in mist form towards the life focus in the ceiling of the hall. The vitalizing energy radiating from his shaft would have healed his wounds and restored his energy for the fight. Perhaps he cannot see clearly in mist form. Instead of rising into the shaft of the life focus, he curls into the bottle. As soon as the last wisp of mist passes inside, you ram the stopper in hard. Icon's voice rings from inside the bottle. "What base trickery is this? Release me, you spawn of the peasantry! Are you too craven to fight with honour?" He did not fight with honour. You strike the bottle against a pillar until Icon is silent. If it was able to hold a mighty jinn in captivity for nearly a millennium, it should be able to hold your arch foe. You bite your lip. You cannot be sure of that. If he should ever get free, he will surely pursue you with his hatred and power redoubled, and there might always be some moment when, perhaps recuperating from wounds, you could be taken unaware by his attack. You cannot remain vigilant forever. Your gaze drifts thoughtfully around the room, and the numbing green radiance of the death focus gives you the solution to the problem. According to legend, the shaft leads straight into the realm of death, from which there can be no returning. You feel a twinge of pity for Icon, but only a twinge. After barely a moment's hesitation, you hurl the bottle down into the green light. In which case we are no longer carrying it. And I will remove the item from Ariadne's inventory. As he realizes the fate to which you have consigned him, his scream is spine-chilling. But then you hear his voice resonating inside the copper bottle, echoing up the shaft like the rumbling of thunder, and what he says lays a pall of dread over you. "If I am to die, it will be with a final savour of revenge. I call upon all the spirits of my ancestors to grant my final wish. By the spell of dying wrath I summon them from a land into which I now descend. As you have taken my life, which is the thing most sweet and precious to me, I charge them to take that which is most precious to you." The bottle has now fallen out of sight, but you see something flowing up the shaft towards you. At first it seems like a bank of greenish fog, but then you begin to discern faces, staring eyes, and soundless howling mouths, emaciated hands reaching towards you. And there we have an illustration. It seems they're going to burst forth from the focus of death. Quite a crowd. It is the grisly host of Icon's ancestral spirits, clawing their way out of the realm of death to grant his final wish. You turn, but even as you start to run, the spirits burst from the shaft. As they flow around you, shrieking curses you cannot hear and clutching at you with their spectral claws, you feel as though the blood in your veins has turned to ice. You collapse with a moan to the hard marble floor, trying to fend them off as they dance macabrely around you. Far away at the edge of your hearing, you hear the whispering of ghostly laughter. You see Icon's face standing clearly out among the throng for an instant. He is truly in the realm of death now. He seems to stoop over you, and you hear the echo of his curse. That which is most precious to you. And I think, in the crowd, that is his face right there. It looks very similar. You look up, wondering if you blacked out for a moment. The spirits have faded from the hall, returning to their deathly abode. The barrier of flame has also dissipated, allowing you to reach the exit. But as you reach for the blood sword, you know that your victory has been turned to ashes. You give vent to a long, tortured howl of anguish and despair. When the spirits sank back into the realm of death, they took the blood sword with them. Realizing this, Brother Kern will attempt another 3-point healing roll. He will get one of those back for himself and give 2 to Sir Alwyn, who really needs them. That is horrific. That Icon, he's certainly got his revenge, and it is horrible. Well, we don't have the blood sword anymore, so I'd better remove it, right? We had it in our grasp for such a brief moment of time. Also, I'm going to remove these notes for the Hatuli. You are so sunk in despondency that you scarcely notice your return journey through the underworld until you are climbing out of the well into the first light of dawn. But during that journey, Brother Kern will find it within himself to make another 3-point healing roll at least once. And those points also are lost. We do not have the code word improbity. I will talk about the code word improbity at the end of the session. You see the gate of Fatima's garden again. It is open, and she is standing in front of it with Hassan. You sorrowfully walk your way across the dew-slick cobblestones to join them, and will make a 1-point healing roll, as we do. We will give that point to our warrior friend, who suffered most heavily at Icon's wounding blows. Their smiles of greeting soon darken to frowns as they hear your story. "This is bitter news," says Hassan. "This Icon must have had the spiteful soul of a viper. A pity I did not linger with you a while longer, as my knife might have found his heart and prevented this sad conclusion to your quest. But take solace from what I tell you. There is nothing which is good or bad in itself, for all such judgments are made in the mind, which is no more real than a mirage. You may seem to sup on the dregs of despair, but viewed in another light, it may become a tasty draught. In the moment of heart's rending, it is often possible to achieve sudden enlightenment." And with that, we turn to another non-combat section, and we will try a healing roll. Just 1 point, mind. And that also is lost. Fatima lays a hand on his arm. "No, Hassan," she says, "that is your way. You act without striving to act. Others must strive, for that is the way of heroes. Even if the cause is futile, it must be fought for. Your own path leads you away from striving, but a hero must be steeped in the world and lusty with life." She turns to you and gestures through the gate to her garden. Hassan counsels you to accept defeat and thus negate it. There is another way, and though it is fraught with peril, I think you will be drawn to it for that very reason. You think that the sword of life is lost to you forever, now that your arch-foe has taken it down with him into the realm of death. Not so. It is said that Death's kingdom is a land from which there can be no returning, but I say that everything is possible, if you have the courage to attempt it. I will show you the path by which you can pass into the netherworld and recover your sword. I will show you how you can challenge death. And with that, our adventure is complete. We've beaten Book 3, the Demon's Claw, the name for the blade of the sword. And for many years for me, this was the end of the adventure. It didn't feel like a cliffhanger, because the books were out of print and hard to get hold of. I mean, literally, it was, 8 or 9 years before I could get hold of a copy of Book 1, you know. And then, mercifully, I was able to get the whole series as PDFs on the internet at one point, from the old Home of the Underdogs website when it existed. It never felt frustrating, and I always felt a sense that the sword would be recovered, there would be another adventure to go on, and I would succeed it when the time came. I did not know that it would be many years of my life until this became possible. And in fact, I still haven't played Book 4 or 5 of the series at all. I've glanced through them briefly recently, just to check like how many sections there were, if code words were used, because code words were not used in the first 2 books, and this seems like this is one of the early instances of code words being used in a game book, instead of just trusting the player when they were asked if they had a certain item. These code words are used in the same way as the code words in the Fabled Lands series. They are used to keep track of things the player has done, instead of tracking it by items that they have in their possession, especially as we have a limited inventory. So the code word improbity, which I said I would mention, it keeps track of whether we have gone into Fatima's garden or not. And we get improbity if we somehow manage to defeat the demons without escaping into her garden, because we have not probed our way into the garden. And the only thing the improbity keyword does is it changes the upcoming sections, because we do not recognize Hassan or Fatima, so they are introduced to us as new characters. For instance, when we get out of the dungeon, we see Hassan standing with a beautiful woman, who then invites us into her garden and is introduced to us as Fatima, you know. So, and the other ones on Hunguk's ship, they track if we've got to his cabin, if we've searched his charts, if we've gone to his cabin, if we've opened the portal to the other dimension outside where he is off fighting monsters, and if we have found the eyes of the Hatuli. Speaking of which, as we are at the end of the adventure, I'm going to remove a few items. I'm going to remove the scroll that tells us about the 7-in-1 and the crystal tuning fork, which has served its purpose. I don't think we'll get to use it again. It doesn't feel like an item that we'll get to use again. I'm going to remove none of... I'm going to keep the Abbot's Drawing, and it has just occurred to me that the Abbot's Drawing might actually be a map of the dungeon we've just been through. Remy will keep Hunguk's charts. Probably doesn't need... I'll keep Fatima's silver key, actually, in case we need it to get back out of Death's domain and into her garden. And Ariadne as the Dragonlord gem, still the amber tinderbox with 2 crystalline blue eyes. And as it's the end of an adventure, I could unmemorize spells, but I did look at the beginning of Book 4, and we go into it raw. Oh, hello, what game? What are you doing there? Weird. Right. If you're playing character from Book 3, you already know what equipment you have. I think we don't even get healed, and we go in our current state. Because, just very quickly, section 1 here, Fatima gives us healing. Right? So, we are not healed. We have a map that we'll get to explore. And, of course, the glossary at the back, which will contain some repeated entries from the first couple of books, but let's dive into it anyway and see what we got. Akaba, the Illuminate. In the Ta'ashim faith, Akaba was chosen by God to preach his message to the world. Gatanades, the saviour of the true faith, is recognised in Ta'ashim as one of Akaba's forerunners, making the two religions closer than most people would admit. So, like Jesus and Muhammad. The Blasting is the demon-spawned disaster in which Spite was laid to ruin and the true Magi were killed. After this holocaust, which lasted for 3 days and nights, Spite was left isolated by a deep chasm. Many believe that this goes right down to the fires of hell. The Caradian Sea is the sea around whose shores are located the richest ports and cities of the world. Caradian is also used as a collective adjective for the countries of the true faith. Algandi, Shobret, Kurland, the New Celentine Empire. Is it Celentine? I think I've gone Celentine before. Asmoli and Emphidor surrounding this sea. Caradians. In Outremer, a blanket term used for anyone of northern blood to distinguish them from the native Ta'ashim. The Crusade was the war against the Ta'ashim, waged by the Caradians ostensibly for religious reasons. Certain parties, the merchants of Pheromone, the Celentine Church, etc., have found the Crusade very profitable, however, and are active in trying to whip up religious fervour in the north in order to further their own ends. Pheromone is the richest port on the Caradian coast. Kraf is a large country in the far north of legend, divided into several dozen separate states, each of which is ruled over by a magus. It is divided from the civilized lands around the Caradian Sea by a deep rift valley which cuts through the Caradian continent from eastern to western shore. A cold and inhospitable country full of ancient and xenophobic traditions, Kraf is avoided by most merchants from other lands. Legend. The Mortal World, Midgard, or Middle-earth. The Marijar sect is a society of assassins who follow an unorthodox branch of Ta'ashim. The Marijars have a secret fortress in the wilderness east of the Harogam Mountains, and are thought to use astral gates to come and go as they please. They could just be really sneaky, or it could explain how Hassan, the old man of the mountain, managed to sneak away so quickly. Outremer, pronounced Outremer. The prince of... Right. In the printed book, there's a little accent of E, so it might be Outremer, not Outremer. So Outremer, The principalities of the Crusade being those areas of Ta'ashim territory which have been captured by the armies of the true faith. And indeed, Outremer was the name for the Crusader kingdoms after the First Crusade in the Middle East. The Old Man of the Mountains, the leader of the Marija sect, he is mentioned in documents dating back at least 100 years. If these accounts all refer to the same individual, then he must be one of the long-lived adepts of Ta'ashim mysticism, as in fact is probably Fatima. Crescentium, the capital of the old Salentine Empire, which once comprised most of the Western world. After the fall of the old empire several hundred years ago, Crescentium has risen to a new importance as the centre of the true faith. Spite was the holy city of the true Magi, who convened there every 7 years in order to commune with the gods of craft. Today it stands in ruins atop a pinnacle of rock in the middle of a vast rift in the earth known as the Cauldron. Ta'ashim is the name given to the religion and peoples of the southern lands in the area that was once the empire of Kai Kohuru. The countries of Ta'ashim are Marazid, Zenir, Haragan, and Opala. Okay, so Opala, not quite as far east as I'd thought. Zenir, ZH, so that's probably Genir. No, possibly. The true faith is the principal religion of modern legend. The true Magi were the original rulers of craft, wizards of unimaginable power who were all slain in the blasting of Spite centuries ago. 5 of the true Magi sent their spirits out of Spite as the cataclysm began. These 5, now identified with shooting stars in the night sky over craft, are Red Death, Gift Star, Plague Star, Blue Moon, and White Light. Now, as we have successfully completed the adventure, we all got to level up. So let's absolutely do that. And since I'm scrolling back in reverse order, let's just do that as well. So, Ariadne ascends to rank 5. Her fighting prowess finally increases to a 7. Wait. No, it stays at a 7. I was looking at rank 4. That is supposed to be a plus. That -1 it's just scanned in really weirdly. As we can see by going all the way back up to near the beginning of this book. So from 1 die plus 1 to 1 die plus 2. Her damage has increased. Also, her awareness has finally increased to a 7, meaning she won't be going quite so slow, and there should be 5 more points of endurance to 25. Right. So, fighting prowess and psychic ability remain the same at this rank. Although that awareness boost is going to seriously help her out in future, because now she'll be able to cast Eye of the Tiger and have it affect her companions immediately. Excellent. It's also worth noting that in Book 4 we don't get any new money, or I don't think we even get to replenish arrows. So, our Sage goes from 1 die plus 2 to 2 dice of damage. Something the Trickster is probably going to do as well. Fighting prowess and psychic ability remain the same. Awareness remains at a 7, and 5 more endurance takes him to 25. Also takes our current endurance up to a 12, because obviously an increase in endurance does not mean the amount of damage we have received should also increase. Remy the Trickster gains fighting prowess and psychic ability remain the same. Damage goes up to 2d6. So pretty similar to the Sage so far. His awareness remains at an 8. And 30 endurance. So he didn't really get anything too special this rank. Increase of 6 endurance means 27 current. And Sir Alwyn the Warrior, fighting prowess and psychic ability remain the same, as does awareness. He's got an extra point of damage. So 2d6 plus 1 damage and 2d6 plus 2 modified for the magic axe. He gains 6 points of endurance, which will take his max to 30 and current up to 12, double what it was before. Alright. That brings us to the end of the adventure. I will save stuff like the fight against the 7-in-1 for the Afterthoughts video. And should probably save too many more Afterthoughts for that as well. We've done well. We pulled through. It was bloody hard. And we should all feel entitled to be heroes. I'm impressed. I've done well. Wasn't expecting to do as well tonight. I knew that I'd honestly forgotten that I could avoid the fight with the Iron Golem. Or I'd got the impression that the Hatuli would lead me by a path that meant I would skip the thing that would let me avoid the fight, because the Hatuli is going directly towards the objective, not necessarily by the safest path. In this case, though, it did lead us by the safest path, and for that I am grateful. Alright, well I will be taking a bit of a break before I record Book 3. There are a number of games on the channel that I haven't recorded for a while that I'd love to get back to. Now, I'm talking only a few days, right? I'm not talking a really long time. I'm talking like three or 4 days, maybe 2 or 3 days. And then we'll start with Book 4, pretty much a blind play. And yeah, that should be fun. So, I'm going to bid you all a very good night. It is nice and early. It's only 18 minutes to 2 in the morning. Look, I got to start before midnight tonight. That's a rare and special occasion. And for that, I am grateful. I hope you all enjoyed this episode. You're all heroes, each and every one of you. Let's see if we can continue this adventure together and recover the blood sword from the realm of death in Book 4, starting soon. After I've had a little break and apparently a little burp as well, because my body just really wanted to and ruin my entire outro. Okay, fine. Right, well, we'll we'll have to leave a better outro till the Afterthoughts video then. Right, well, see you all next time, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Keep up those heroic deeds. Make the world a better place. Bye-bye.